Thursday, get my days of the week all messed up. We had gone through the 14 steps of listing presentation, why listings were important, how to leverage your time in your business with listings, and how you should be able to produce at least one qualified buyer from every listing transaction that you get. And listings will also generate additional leads, additional business. We talked about all the benefits of listings. Then we talked about the 14 steps of listing presentation with regards to the phone conversation. Less is more on the phone, never get into price or talking about commission. On an initial phone call, the goal is to get an appointment to see the house. When you get to the property, make sure that you've done a drive-by, you show up on time, you're a little bit familiar with the area. You do your initial meet and greet, look the individual in the eye, shake hands. Remember to put your stuff down, ask for a quick tour of the property. And during that quick tour of the property, you're going to make sure you have a notebook and that you're taking notes that shows that you're listening. But what else do we use that quick tour for? What's important to use that quick tour for? Anybody remember? Not only just to see the house, what else are we trying to do before we sit down and do our presentation?
Assess motivation.
What'd you say?
Assess motivation.
Yep, motivation.
Personality type.
Yeah.
Boom, personality types what I'm getting at. I'm trying to, if I don't know already, try to get a sense of who the decision makers are. Because usually if I'm with more than one person, who's the main decision maker or the influencer, right? And what personality type am I dealing with both of them? I try to find out both personality types, but also who's the dominant one, because I want to appeal to the dominant one, the decision maker, but I also want to appeal to the other one to kind of help me team up and do that with the other one. So you have to kind of pay attention closely to the conversation. And you can find this out by asking key questions like, oh, I love the furniture here. It goes, I just actually had it the other day. I went on showing for John Longo to assist, and I was talking to the husband, and I'm like, wow, this house is immaculate. So I was like, yeah, that's my wife. She picks out everything, right? You know, I don't even get to pick out the color of the towel. So what did he tell me right away? He told me she's the decision maker.
She's the boss.
The dominant one. She's the boss. So if I was to do a presentation for them, I'm going to try to win her over with his help. That makes sense. So just a reminder of that, you know, so you go, you do that quick tour, you take mental notes, you want to be complimentary of the house. You never want to go, oh my God, who picked that up? Who picked that furniture? Or who picked that color, right? Or is that an odor I smell? Yeah, we're going to have to take care of that before we get people in here. You literally just walked in the door less than 3 minutes ago and already, you know, you're taking shots at them. So what happens is the wall goes up. So you want to be complimentary. You want to come off as, you know, asking questions, trying to make a connection. Remember I talked about, you know, find something that you can connect with in the house. If it's something that you collect, talked about, you know, the things that you collect. If it's a TV, a stereo system, something that you see there that you're familiar with, try to make that connection. Maybe it's a sports team. They have, you know, memorabilia on the wall. You know, start talking about some of the players. You know, for some of you guys, you know, kids, you see trophies and softball, stuff like that. Talk about your experiences. You want to make that connection because what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve that know, like, and trust factor, right? People do business when they know, like, and trust. You know, if you're referred in or it's someone that you know, don't also take that, you know, advantage of that and say, I already know these people. They already like me, trust me, and they're not going anywhere else. You also want to give them the same treatment you would anyone else because you want them to respect the fact that you're here for business and also understand what you have to do to get their home sold. So later on down the road, if there's a problem, you can refer back to, yeah, remember when I went through that presentation, I explained this is what happens with this marketing, this is what happens with that marketing. So you want to show up dressed professionally, even if it's someone that you know and you're comfortable with. You want to do the same tour. And people's personalities change in different situations. You might know someone for 20 years and, you know, they're a laid back person and you get along well with them. You guys always joke and have things in common. But now you're talking about the biggest asset that they own. Watch how quickly they change. Christine, you ever experienced that?
Yep, absolutely.
Possessions, you'd be surprised at how quickly that they can change on you and be a little bit different than you thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you want to come there with that mind prepared that I'm going to treat this person the same way I would treat any new prospect or client. And it will save you down the road if things, which they often do, you know, go a little bit sideways. You know, it's rare that you get a transaction that's perfect from start to finish. And I'm not trying to scare you guys, but the reality is not every single transaction that you're going to come across in this business is going to be perfect. And you want to set that expectation up front and early that, hey, we're going to try to get you through this transaction. I know you're nervous, you haven't sold in a while, or I know you're looking to make your move. Trust me, you know, we're going to sit down, we're going to formulate a plan. I'm going to go through some of the marketing with you. And then we're going to talk about getting you through this. You know, we may anticipate some bumps in the road. Nothing goes perfect. But that's why I'm here to navigate you through this. So you're going to want to talk to them, especially the high S's. That's why this personality in that quick tour is important, so that you know that if you're going to be quick and to the point, or are you going to take your time and comfort them and, reassure them and let them know that, you do this every day for a living, and that you're going to guide them in the system to wherever it is they need to go.
I think the more that you can anticipate what's going to happen in the transaction and set them up for that, the more you're going to be that professional, right? The predictability of a transaction definitely is going to help through scenarios or through training that you guys have been, because you may not have a lot of scenarios yet, but through training and process of expectation, the more that we do that, the more that we show them the need for us. I think that's really important.
Trying to find that slide, and I think I put it in. So Christine brings up a good point. So you remember the slide that we had, which shows the process? You kind of want to walk them step by step through that process and set that expectation. And we talked about that on Thursday. I'm not going to bring that one out right now, but what I want to do is today start to talk about what happens after that presentation, right? What happens that, we got done with our listing presentation. All right, so this is the end of the listing presentation, right? So what makes Miranda Real Estate Group different? So you remember, we sat down at the table. Once you've gotten a tour of the house and you made some mental notes about the house, you might want to elaborate a little bit and just reconfirm. I know we spoke briefly on the phone before me coming here, but remind me again why I'm here. Why are you thinking about selling? Why are you making a move? You want to understand clearly what their intentions are. Don't just make assumptions, because when we make assumptions, that sometimes gets us in trouble. So you want to make sure that you understand clearly why they're moving, whether they're looking to downsize, whether they're looking to relocate for work, maybe they're looking to step up into another property and they need to sell quickly in order to buy. So you want to be able to clearly have a picture of why they're selling. Maybe it's, they're trying to flip the property and they need to make a certain percentage. So I'll sit down with a piece of paper and the same notepad that I had, and then I'll ask them a question. What are the 3 things that are important for you in the agent that you pick and the company that you pick? I want to know what hot points before I get into my presentation, not after, that I need to touch upon, right? Or elaborate on a little bit, especially if I'm dealing with a high D where I have to be quick and to the point. I'm going to be very selective about the slides I pick based on the answers to those 3 questions. So it's about setting the expectations, about listening. It's about getting those questions answered. That's going to help you, right? In sales is to discover what their pain points are and then try to offer the solution or assistance to answer their pain points. Right? Don't try to go there and sell yourself. Biggest mistake you could do is try to sell yourself. Me. I'm Brian. I'm great. I do this. I've done that. I've sold this. I've done that. I have a career in customer service and I take care of people. Customers want to know what's in it for me. Can you solve my pain? Right? I have a headache. Can you be the medicine to make it go away? Think about that when you're getting into a presentation is, what is this person really challenged with? What is it that I need to bring them up to speed with? And what is it that I can show them in this presentation that's going to give them that know, like, and trust factor so that I could stand out and make myself different from the competition? So when we went through this presentation the other day, we ended up on this slide right here. So to recap, what makes Miranda Real Estate Group different from the competition? And these are some key bullet points. Maybe one of these things really resonated with the seller when you were going through, you got their attention. Maybe you want to circle back to that. Maybe it's something that that communication is very important to them. And maybe they had a previous experience at one point in time with a realtor that didn't get back to them in time or just didn't communicate, or they were left in the dark. You want to remind them our phones are answered 24/7 by a live person. So we're going to be able to communicate with all prospects and then get that information over to you as well. Remind them that you're not working alone. You're backed by a team, not only full-time staff, but all of our agents work together as a group. That's why we're called Miranda Real Estate Group. You're not hiring me as an individual, especially for you newer agents. We're going to talk about one of the biggest objections that you guys will get is, how many houses have you sold? Remember, it's the biggest asset that they're potentially ever going to own or sell. And the last thing you want to say is, hey, your luck. I just started. You're my first. Got to start somewhere. Probably not going to win that listing in a competitive market, against other people, no matter how much they unfortunately love you and trust you and know that, you come highly recommended from a close friend of theirs or family member. You still need, like I said, to show them why it's in their best interest to list with you versus the competition. And remember, leverage the experience. You have a couple of experienced agents here that, are coming on calls like this, sharing information with you guys. You guys are able to do open houses for them, assist with them, and get that experience too. Leverage that. So you know what? I'm part of a group last year that sold 1,000 houses. We're on pace to do that again this year. And to be honest with you, I can't tell you how many transactions I was involved in because we do operate as a group. Flip it around on them. What are the things that are important that you're looking for in the company that sells your house, right? And when you have this screen up right here, I would leave this screen up when you're getting into the conversation about, was there anything here in the marketing that you still have questions about that I didn't cover, right? You want to make sure you answer all their questions. And based on the marketing that you've seen, am I the agent? Are we the company that you feel comfortable listing your home? If not, why? Now, I'm going to cheat as a trainer a little bit because before I go further, I want you guys to watch about a 12-minute video. We're going to have our friend Anthony 𝗟𝗶𝘶𝗶𝗴 and his sales manager, Dave, kind of go through a dialogue, objections, and then we'll circle back here and we'll continue on and tell you how we kind of handle it here at Ryan Real Estate Group. A lot of what they're going to tell you is very similar in every conversation on listing appointments. In our market, we might have some slightly different tweaks, and we'll discuss that after here. I'm going to stop my share and then I'm going to share again so I can bring the audio. We're going to play.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Dave Carolee, our VP of Sales for our entire company. Hello, Dave.
How you doing, guys? Hey, Anthony.
So Dave helps us with training, or I shouldn't say helps us. He helps with the training videos for our national customers, but he also runs training and handles training for our company here at 𝗟𝗶𝗶𝗶 that we have every week. And all I asked him to do was to join me, and we're going to do a quick, 8 or 10 minute mock closing it presentation for you guys, because I just went over that with you and I explained the principles behind it, but I wanted you to have a chance to see me go through it, and he'll hit me with a couple of those objections, and you'll see how I handle it and how I get to the bottom of it. Because remember, the goal with closing it is 1, finding out what the issue is, and then 2, having an opportunity to tackle it while you're face to face as opposed to on the phone weeks or several weeks later. So, all right, I'm going to pretend that we just went over the net sheet. Dave liked what he saw for a number, and I'm just going to do what I would always do at the end of a net sheet once I know they're feeling good and say, so Dave, are you ready to start looking for buyers?
I need a little time to think about it.
Oh, okay. Are you you want to think about whether you want to sell or not, or who you want to hire?
I'm definitely selling. I wasn't quite honest when you first came. I definitely need to sell.
Okay.
Just interviewing a couple different agents, want to get the best fit for me and my family.
Look, I totally understand. It's a lot to cover. We went over a lot. It's a lot to think about, and I can certainly understand that. But from my own personal feedback, is there anything that maybe I could have been a little more clear on or spent more time on that would make you more comfortable?
No, you were great. I liked everything you had to say. It
Awesome.
seems like a big decision.
Thank you. No, I totally agree that it's a big decision, and but while I'm here, I just want to talk about marketing for just another minute, just to make sure we're totally clear. When we went over the presentation, I had talked to you about how we have special agreements with the major search portals, and our listings bump up higher in the search, and I'd also talked about our television advertising, and you said you were quite excited about TV and billboards in particular, because you see our billboards everywhere.
Oh, God, driving up 93, I just saw one this morning.
Yeah. Well, good, and I just want to make sure that I did a good job, because sometimes, frankly, I don't feel like I do this as well, is just making sure you understand how that puts more money in your pocket, because we're driving buyers and sellers to us every day, and remember, many sellers are also buyers, and the more people that we drive in, remember what I said, more marketing equals more demand equals more money for sellers. I just want to make sure you totally understand that, because I know you're interviewing others.
Yeah, no, the marketing's definitely exceeding what they do.
Okay.
What they do. Yeah, no doubt about that.
Okay, awesome. And, are the other companies doing billboards or television?
I haven't seen any billboards or TV. So no, they're not doing either one of those.
Okay. All right. So see what I did there? I talked about what we do. Then I did planted a seed of doubt by asking a question. Okay. So I'm going to jump back in now. All right, Dave. Well, like I said, I just wanted to make sure you felt good about that. And when we went over pricing, we looked at all those comps, and you seemed to agree that we should be at about $450 when we listed. Are you hesitating on that? You getting concerned about it?
I want to get as much as I can for it. You were kind of right in line with what one of the other agents had to say. But somebody seemed to think I can get more towards like $475, $480.
Okay.
I want more money.
Look, remember something. The more you get, the more we make too. That's true.
I guess I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, we work off of commission. But while we're here, let's look at those comps again. I mean, look, and for the record, I'm willing to do 475 if you want that to be plan A. But let's look at the comps for a minute. Which one of these, and then I would pull the comps back out and I'd say, which one of these makes you feel that we should, do you feel based on these that we should be at 475?
I mean, I don't, but they seemed really confident in it. You know what I mean? That it would sell quickly, that it wouldn't. I think they said even in a weekend or so. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think mine's a little bit nicer than that one at 450.
Yeah.
Is it 475? I don't know. But,
okay.
I mean, they seem very professional.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's one thing we could do. For starters, I just want to make sure you realize, remember we talked at the beginning, or I should say I want to make sure you remember, a lot of homes are selling over asking price. That does happen. So if buyers think it's worth more, they'll pay more. But they're more likely to pay more when it's priced aggressively, or priced, I should say, correctly. So I just wanted to point that out. But if you want to go out at 475 as a plan A, plan B, if it doesn't sell, what are we going to do?
I mean, I guess we'd have to make a reduction. I have to sell. I guess I'm just struggling with, what if we list at 450 and it doesn't go for more money?
Yep. It could happen.
Am I going to leave money on the table? That's what has me a little bit.
But keep something in mind, Dave. If you list at 450 and it doesn't sell, then it definitely would not have sold if it went out at 475. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, I'd like to try 475.
Okay.
If it doesn't get it, I'll definitely make a reduction. I mean, what else am I going to do? I don't want to carry two properties.
I know, and look, if we go about this the right way and work together as we should, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
All right, so we just went on, he just hit me with pricing as one objection. So that was exciting, we found one. Usually there's one, but for the purpose of mock role play, I want to spend a minute on pricing, I want to spend a minute on commission, and then I want to spend a minute on something else he's going to hit us with. So, all right, Dave, now moving down the net sheet, we're clear on pricing. We're going to give 475 a try, right?
Yeah, that makes me feel much better.
All right, so we can increase this net number by roughly 25,000. Okay. So now you're walking away with 350.
I like that number better than the other number.
I bet you do, and look, I do too. Remember, like I said, we're in this together. The more you get, the more we get as well. So that's what we want. Now, moving down, any other expenses that you're concerned or have questions about?
What percentage is that on the commission?
Okay, so that's 6 apples, right? I'm not getting into numbers. This is a national video.
Sure,
but it's 6 apples, and that's our fee that we charge for services and for all the extensive marketing that we do.
Oh, okay.
Is that good?
I mean, it's a little
Makes
higher.
sense?
It's a little higher than what the other people had to offer.
Well, and, remember.
One was at 4 apples, and one was, I think, 5 if they also brought the buyer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the thing. We're not a discount company. We don't. When we run our marketing for your property, we're not going to discount something. For example, do you want me to take something away?
No. I mean,
that's what I mean. Should we eliminate online floor plans?
No, I like the floor plan.
That's what I'm saying. So for us to provide you everything, we have to charge what's adequate. And remember, one of the things that we talked about is on average, our listings sell for 1.25% more the list to sale price ratio than our competitors. So if you're paying an extra 0.5% or 1%, you're going to either make it up or you're going to make it up and then some. You ever, did something that you were able to find a way to do it a little cheaper and then live to regret it?
Yep, the playroom at my house right now. Shady contractor. I had to get everything redone. Yeah, and I understand.
On the new house?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it happens. But, all right, so I would continue to tackle commission right there. If he continues to push back, one thing I would do is reach into my toolkit. Some days I call it toolkit, some days I call it toolbox. But it's the bag of tools, folks. So if he was still pushing back, I'd reach in and I'd say, listen, if you're that stressed out about commission, one thing I could do, and I would show the flexible commission agreement, and I would say, okay, Dave, so one thing we can do is I'm going to charge you this many apples, but if we sell it ourselves, okay, and no other agencies involved, I can charge you that many apples. Does that make you feel better?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Yeah,
Good.
Definitely.
Good news. All right. Now we've cleared up, so you feel better about pricing, you feel better about commission, and at that point, then, are you feeling good? You ready to look for buyers?
I'm getting there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. All right. Anything else we should clear up while I'm here?
It seems to vary amongst agents. How long of a contract do we need to sign?
So we typically do a 6-month agreement.
Oh, wow.
That's the norm.
Wow.
If
How long?
Does it concern you?
I mean, I just hear houses are selling like this and selling like that, and I don't see why you need 6 months.
Oh, well, look, I'm hoping we don't need 6 months as well, but that's the standard that we do. And remember, that's for the time we put it on the market. From now, we got to get it on the market. We got to market it. We got an offer. By the time it closes, do I think it's going to take 6 months? Probably not. If you're that concerned about it, I can pull another handy sheet here. I'm allowed to use 2 of these a month out of my toolbox, and this is our cancellation guarantee. And this says that after 90 days on the market, if your home isn't sold, you can cancel with 30 days notice. So that would take it from a maximum of 6, maybe I could say a minimum of 6 months total, down to 4.
Yeah,
does that make you feel better?
Helps. Yeah, I just don't want to get tied into 6 months from now is the middle of winter.
Yeah.
What am I going to do if it doesn't sell by December?
I think we're going to get it sold by then.
I mean, I hope so. Look at this place.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Your chandeliers, your baseboards.
You like the baseboards?
Your windows are just, it's amazing.
Yeah, I like
greatest
it too.
house
I did
I've
it
ever
all
seen.
myself.
I can tell. Yeah, it looks awesome. So, does that make you feel better?
Yeah, no, it does. And it's not that I don't think you're going to sell it. It's just, put yourself in my shoes.
Yeah, you want to do what's best, and I understand that. But, you called us for a reason. You called off our marketing.
I did.
We're in the marketing business. We are a marketing machine. And we're going to apply that marketing to your home to create as much demand, which is going to create as much money as possible.
Yeah, I'm not quite ready for the pictures and everything, but it definitely squashed some of my concerns. Let's do it.
Well, one thing we can do is, if you need a few weeks or a month or whatever to get ready for pictures, we can get you on board now. We can get you into our pre-list. Okay, our pre-list is basically.
You mentioned that before.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing: you don't have to be on the market to be in that list. But you do have to be signed up with us. And here's the thing. Let's say tomorrow or the next day, I find out about a buyer that's interested in your home and they're willing to close on your price and your terms if they like the home. Do you want to find out about that?
Who wouldn't want to?
That's what I mean. So the only way to get that possibility to happen, to make that possibility happen, is come on board with us. I'll get you in the system. You still have time to do whatever you want here to get totally ready.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, don't feel like once you sign up with us, it's got to go on the market in a minute.
That's what I was guessing happened.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of people have a misunderstanding there, and I'm sorry if I wasn't more clear on that.
No, you drive a hard bargain. It sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. Bang, right into the paperwork. So what I noticed is I went from solving the 3 problems straight to, okay, now are you ready to look for buyers? I probably in a real appointment wouldn't have done that. I would have probably had some small talk, 5 or 10 minutes, then done that. But for the purpose of a training video, when we're all here, I just felt that it was better to speed it along. What did I forget? Anything?
No, I think he hit it on good in terms of making it a conversation more. And
yes.
Just remember in the very beginning, you're bringing the emphasis on yourself.
Yes.
He did so many things.
I sat back.
Before. He sat back.
Yeah.
It wasn't a confrontation. It wasn't why you're signing now or else. He really opened a good discussion. And just remember those talking points from, is it me? Was it the marketing? Was it the pricing? Was it the commission? Follow the steps in the appointment. And honestly, it's gotten me to get more people signed up on the spot than I ever thought it would. Probably, like many of you, I was very skeptical of it working out. But you will be surprised how many people, change their tune and sign up on the spot. Because those are the issues. They're just not going to tell them to you.
That's right. They never do. And I was explaining that when I did the closing it section, as I said, I told the story how when we first started doing this in 2014, within 7 days, we signed up 3 listings that you, Mike, and I remember Dennis said, I never would have signed these up. Mm-hmm. And we were kidding with Mike because Mike said, well, I just kind of just kept staying there. And he just stayed there and took his time and small talk with them, and it really helped. So, guys, this stuff works. Use it, and you'll notice a big difference. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, sir.
I just wanted you guys to get a little bit of a different flavor of, typical conversations. And some of the main in that conversation, the reason why I played that video is because some of the main objections that you're going to hear center around price, center around commission. You're going to get objections for commission all the time. You're going to get objections around price. You're going to get objections around the length of the contract, the term. So you want to be prepared how to handle those conversations. Now, one of the biggest things that they didn't do that I'm going to recommend that you do, that we've done here differently, always done here differently, is when you get to the end of your presentation right here, you want to sit back and you want to ask some questions about yourself. Then you don't want to jump right into the pricing conversation or having that pricing conversation first. Because if you jump into the pricing conversation before you get into commission or anything else, what happens is the seller gets fixated on that price and they're making their decision based on the price that you came up with, right? So, hey, just want to let you know that we just got done with all the marketing here. And based on all the marketing alone that I just shared with you, ask, how did I do? And remember when I asked them in the beginning of the presentation, what are the 3 things that were important to them? Did I address your concern about this? Did I address your concern about that? Maybe one of their concerns was pricing. We're going to get into that. But, pricing aside, based on all of the marketing that we do and the process that I just shared with you, do you feel comfortable hiring me and Marina Real Estate Group as your realtors? Okay. And then just be quiet and see what else they come out with, because there's something that you didn't do correctly. They're going to share that with you. And like you said, sit back and just kind of relax and just, you're taking the emphasis off of them. You're putting it on yourself. What is there something I didn't do to help? Remember when I talked about the pain point, right? Solve that pain point. So I asked it, did I do a good job helping you understand what we do to get your home sold? And then, you have this slide up in front of you. If you are talking to other agents, well, we're kind of just interviewing other agents and everything and talking to a few people. Great. Do other companies, have you seen, are they doing a lot of these different things that we're doing here differently? Do they have someone answering their phones 24/7? Are they offering you a moving truck? Do they have that much support staff that they work with? Right? You guys are in competition now, especially if you've never sold a house before. You got to use some of the things on this slide as your leverage to compete. Or if you're not selling a ton of houses, you want to leverage that group concept to compete with them. One of the things that we talked about, well, we haven't talked about price. Yeah, I agree with you. Price is very important, so we'll talk about that conversation, get to the pricing conversation. And I'm actually going to get into that pricing conversation here in a minute with you guys. But I just want to talk about usually commission at this point is a conversation, and someone will say, well, I have someone already I was referred to, works with my significant other that, can do it for 4%, 5%. Oh, what's that person's name? And again, that person, there's a big difference. Write this down. There's a big difference. And remember, you got this slide up in the background when you're having this conversation. There's a big difference between what agents charge and what agents do. You believe in the whole saying, you get what you pay for. There's a big difference between what agents charge and what agents do. That's why I wanted to show you all the marketing that we did. And this is very important, why it's important to share this presentation, even with friends. Come on, man, you're going to give me a break, right? You're going to do it for 4%. You're going to do it for lower now, 4 apples, you should say, because we know in back, I'm like, no, we do a lot of money, a lot of marketing, right? And one of the things he says that I like to echo is that our full marketing package is what I just showed you right here. I'll get into this slide right here. The company charges 6% for full marketing package. That's everything that we just showed you. Our length is 6 months, but we don't discount the marketing that we offer you. So why would we discount our commission? And if you have someone that's willing to do it for less, that's great. But ask yourself, if they're so quick to cut their commission, are they really going to fight for top dollar for you? How quickly are they going to cave on your bottom line when another realtor is coming in lower on an offer, right? If they're quick to cave on their commission, are they going to, and they can't fight for their own commission, are they going to fight to get you top dollar? I know Christine and Brenda are still on. What are some of the top objections you guys use when you're having that commission conversation? Not price, commission conversation. See if one of them wants to chime in. Even Carol, if your mic is open, go with Brenda. Brenda just opened her mic.
I think they covered it really, really well.
Yeah. Similar to your conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what you and Willie have told us is that, I'm going to screw up the phrase, but in the absence of value, somebody's not going to balk it at
right.
6.
Right. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
That's it. So you have to go in there, Superman pose behind and believe in all that it works.
And you have to be confident. Going back to confidence too. You got to go in there with confidence that, I'm confident that our marketing is above and beyond what you're seeing out there and what you're being offered. And to Brenda's point, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. We talked about that. And that's why it's a huge mistake if agents are going on appointments without a presentation because you're not demonstrating your value. Remember, I used the Starbucks and Cumberland Farms analogy. Why would people pay $6 or $7 for a coffee at Starbucks? Terry Ann, we've had this conversation, right? She's got hers right there. I knew it. She always has it right there. Versus going to buy the same size coffee at Cumberland Farms. It's because, Starbucks, people perceive the value in it and they don't mind paying that extra money for the better bean, the better quality, the better taste. Well, if you use a presentation, you're demonstrating yourself as being better, right? Why is it there's certain car companies, 4-door car, 6-cylinder, same size car, same size motor, some cars are 30,000 and some of them are 130,000, right? It's because that value that is perceived by going with that product, because they demonstrate we use better materials, we do more engineering, we do more safety, all these different things that you just demonstrated in the real estate market. Why, going back to that slide here, I'll show them this slide briefly, but then I like when I'm negotiating to keep it on this slide, because I could always refer back to something. Well, that other company that we talked to, they were going to do it for less, but they're going to put us on the MLS and they were going to give us some photos and some color brochures. Yep, we have professional photos, we have professional videos, we got color brochures, and we're going to put you. Are they going to give you the virtual tours and are they going to offer you a Matterport video, or are they going to offer you access to a global relocation network? I don't quite remember. So you want to keep this screen up as a reminder for you guys. Your laptop should be right up while you're having this conversation about commission, because this screen represents your value, to Brenda's point. And it's much harder, and you're not really going to run it too long. If you do the presentation right, to Brenda's point, most people are going to be like, okay. And here's another closing line I usually use when I get to this point right here, when I ask, so based on all the marketing that I just shared with you, did I do a good job showing you what's involved in our process to get your home sold? Did I answer your questions? And if they have a question or two, I'll refer back to something here, or I'll give them an answer. But if they say, no, you did a good job, Brian. So what did I get them to commit to already? It's not me, right? If they don't list with me, it's not me, because they're saying, unless they're being, afraid to be rude, they're telling me I did a good job. I did a great job explaining. And what you'll get, and some of our agents can testify to this, what you'll get from some sellers is, wow, I didn't realize you guys did that much. I didn't realize there was that much involved in the process, right? They thought we just put a sign in the lawn, put it up on the MLS, take some photos, and that was it. They didn't realize there was all this stuff going on behind the scene on the internet, with virtual tours and sign writers and 24-hour answering service and follow-up and staff. They don't realize that all that is involved. And that's how you are going to offset your commission in that conversation. 6%, it's pretty competitive compared to what we're seeing out there in the marketplace. But what we're not seeing is the level of services, products and services that our competitors are offering. And the reason why that's important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is because the more marketing equals more demand, right? The more eyes that are on your house and see it, it's going to create more demand. More demand is going to mean more money in your pocket. And that's the goal here. And if anyone could sell it for more money, we know we can with our marketing. More money for you means more money for me. So trust me, I get it that you're looking for a deal in commission, but sometimes, it's 1%. So you're hung up over 1%. So if you're thinking about listing your house, I'm just saying roughly, I'm just using round numbers, at $400,000, I was able to net you more than 1%, which is $4,000. Would you have a problem with that? Would you want to pay that commission at that point? It's smoke and mirrors sometimes with the percentages, because sometimes with the more demand in our marketing, I could show you countless examples where our sellers have netted 3%, 4%, 5% more than the commission they paid us in price. So over listing, especially in this market. Oh, go ahead. Who's talking?
Oh, it's Brenda again. I also think it's very important that while we focus on all the things that we should say, we also have to know when to just zip it.
Shut up. Great point. Less is more, right? If you have someone that's saying, okay, that makes sense, I'm good, go right to the listing paperwork. Go right to the listing paperwork. Just assume you got the listing. I like to come with a lockbox in my hand already on the table. I have the paperwork out. I have it all pre-filled with their information in it. And I just start talking about the documents. And then we might have that conversation about commission when we get to that point on the listing paperwork. And if they ask a question, I can explain it. Now, like Anthony mentioned in a video, Brenda and Christine, feel free to chime in here. If you do have an objection on commission sometimes, and they're persistent about it, then you could dip into some other tools. Normally, I don't do this, but since you are buying with me, or if you are buying with me, that's another transaction involved. What I can do is, and I use low numbers, I split it in half. If another person brings the buyer, we have to pay them out. Our co-broke that we offer is 2.5%, which leaves me with 3.5% to do all the marketing and to cover my side of the transaction. You notice I didn't say 6, I said 2.5 and 3.5. I'm using lower numbers. But since you are buying with me, what I can do, and I'll put it in writing, is I will, if I bring the buyer, I just showed you that screen where we have 50,000 buyers in waiting. A lot of times we're able to match up buyers with some of our sellers. But if me personally, Brian Miranda, and there's no other agents involved from my company or any other company, if I'm able to sell your property to one of my buyers, I will reduce my commission by 1%, right? And I'll put it in writing in a little document. But what am I looking for? I'm looking for another transaction from them as well. So I'm not really it's give or take. I'm trying to make logic of it. And that's with me still giving you this level of service and all the marketing here that you see up on the screen. And that's why it's important to keep the screen up to show you. And if other agents are willing to discount their commission, they should, because they're not going to give you all this. They should charge you less. Just like Common Farms, they should charge $1 because they're not going to go through and put all that love and care in producing that bean and that quality flavor and that taste, right? So think about yourself as a higher commodity than your competition. And it's easier to do that if you have a presentation that you just went through, you just explain the value, you hit on their pain points, you have it up in front of them for them to see and stare. Because, the other thing is, if you want me to do it at a lower commission, I don't want to go down there and start taking things away, because once they see it, they don't want to unsee it. They want it. Most people want it. So here's another sentence and phrase for you guys to use for a close. Most, immediately, and now. Those 3 words I talk about. When you use those 3 words together in a combination, they're effective. Most, immediately, now. Most of the sellers I share this presentation with and see the value in our marketing and how it's going to create more demand, immediately list with us so they can get their house sold now. Most, immediately, and now. Why? Most, when you use the word most, it automatically says, I don't want to be in the minority. I want to be in the majority. So most people, they're going to be agreeable to that term. I don't want to be in the minority. I want to be in the majority. Immediately and now means what? Speed, right? They don't want to deal with all this paperwork and people coming through their house and confusion. Let me just sign this right now. And while I have someone here, this looks great. Let me just immediately sign this so that I can get going with this now and get it on the market now. So most, immediately, and now. So based on everything I just showed you here, do you think that I'm the right fit for you? Marina Real Estate Group is the right fit for you. Most sellers that we present this to, when they see how much extra demand this is going to create and end up with more money in their pocket, they immediately list with us so we can get going and sell their house now. Okay, that's sales. You guys are in sales. You need to learn how to handle some of these scripts and objections and be able to dodge and weave around it. Now, you notice I'm having all this conversation and I haven't talked about price yet. I do that for a reason, because unfortunately in this business, you do enough business, or you tell enough people that you're in real estate, they're not going with you. From the second you walk in the door, I don't care if you're coming in with briefcases of money already for them, they're not going with you. They already have their mind made up who they're going to go with, okay? And they want to have you come in because they're curious in what? They want to know what you have to say about what?
The listing price and the percentage you're going to charge.
Price. Mostly it's price, right? The percentage doesn't matter if they're not going to go with you. If they already have a relative or a friend or someone they promised a listing to, maybe they just want to validate that price and they want a second opinion on price. So I'll bring Janelle in. I'll let her do her hour spiel and presentation and all that. But the bottom line I want to know is, what does Janelle think my house is worth? So that when I list it with, Agent A over there, I could feel good about it because the price is relative. So if I get into that price conversation, all this other conversation about value and commission, it's irrelevant because they already know what my recommendation is or where I'm leaning in price, right? So to Brenda's point is, you got to know what not to say and when to say it. Timing is everything. You don't want to start jumping off of this slide and getting right into a price conversation without handling these other objections. You want to bring these objections out of them. That's why I'm asking the question. Before I get into the price conversation, pricing aside, just based on the marketing and the presentation I shared with you, are you comfortable moving forward and listing with me and Marina Real Estate Group? Did I do a good job explaining things? And then I shut up. I don't try to oversell. If they say, no, gee, I didn't realize that you guys did all this extra stuff. Great. All right, so I got the paperwork here. I'm going right into the paperwork and getting things signed. Let's get this paperwork signed all the way, and then we can sit down and have a strategy about price. Or they say, well, I don't know. You didn't tell me a price yet, Brian. Okay, price be aside, because I know you're like most sellers, you're smarter than people. You're not going to pick a realtor just based on the price that they tell you. That would be a mistake, just to hire a realtor based on the price. Because if that's the case, I'll tell you, I could probably get $100,000. If I tell you I can get $100,000 more than the number you're thinking, that means you're going to hire me. You're smarter than that, right? In other words, the way you phrase your words, you're smarter than that, means they don't want to say, well, yeah, you're right. I am going to list with the person that tells me the highest price, because that would make them look stupid. Would you agree? So price being aside, we're going to talk about price here in a second. We're going to work on a price strategy together, but marketing and price is what sells the house. We'll talk about price, but based on the marketing alone and the company that you're going to hire to do the marketing, that's going to create more demand and then more money in your pocket. Do you feel moving forward with me and Marina Real Estate Group? Because here's the thing, that answer to that question is going to determine whether I even get into that pricing conversation. Do I want to sit there, I'm Janelle, and waste another 45 minutes talking about price if I know they're not going to use me, right? If they can't give me a solid yes or a pretty comfortable yes until they hear the price, then what I'm going to say is I'm going to close my laptop and I'm going to say, well, listen, I took a lot of extensive notes here. You have a beautiful home, compliment them on the home. Now that I've seen the house in more detail, I'm going to go back to the comparables. I'm going to go back to my office, talk to a lot of our agents that work in this area and come up with a pricing strategy for your home and come back to you. I know you're interviewing other agents, but can I ask for one favor? I'm going to do a lot of work to prepare a price for you. Can you allow me to come back in before you make a final decision? I can come back tomorrow at 2. What am I doing? I'm trying to at least salvage something here because I want to dangle that carrot. If I give them my commission, I give them all my marketing, and I give them all that price, my price. When I walk out the door, what do they need from me? Nothing, right? So what do I got to lose? If they're not willing to commit to me right now after my presentation, I'm going to leave a carrot, and that carrot's going to be price. But I'm going to tell them how much work I'm going to do in order to come up with that price. Any questions on that? You guys understand where I'm going with that? I don't like to turn it into a 2-point listing agreement. I like to get it signed right then and there. And 90% of the time I do it, but I could sense and I could tell, and you probably won't, until it happens to you, that you didn't have a shot at that listing even when you walked in the door. It's there. You're there for a second opinion. Now, what happens if you do your job good is you get them to open up their eye and you get them to think. That's another reason why sometimes I like to leave that pricing thing dangling, because now they haven't had a chance to talk amongst themselves. And now I'm being compared to the agent they already decided to go with. And wait a second, before we sign with that agent, Janelle brought up this, Janelle's company does that, Janelle's company does this. And I'm really curious to see what kind of price she's going to have too. Let's hold off on signing with that first person until we hear back from her, because I want to see what type of price she comes up with in conjunction with the marketing that they offer. You want to try to convince them to weigh their options before they just sign with someone that they already made their mind up before seeing you, right? How about getting to this point in the 14 steps, the listing presentation, getting to this screen, and then talking and handling objections? I'm going to pick on someone here. I know hopefully she could open up a mic and has a mic, but Carolyn, if you could open up your mic, I want to ask you a couple questions because you've been on your fair share of listing appointments as well. Anything that I'm saying resonates here?
She doesn't have a mic in there.
Doesn't have a mic in there?
No.
All right. Brenda chime in. Christine, anything on your conversations with sellers when you're going in for the close? What's your go-to, and what is something that you still struggle with even after all your listing appointments on conversion? Can you sense, let me go back. Can you sense when you're on an appointment and they already had their mind made up to go with someone else?
No, I don't think that, I didn't mean to say that condescendingly. When I go in there, I guess the confidence level has built up through the years too, that I have to say, oh, I hope I get this listing. I change that. I'm getting this listing.
Right.
So it's the mindset when you begin and to prove your value. And I'm going to prove my value till I'm blue in the face and understand the top 3 things that are most important to that seller. And I'm only going to really hone in on those things.
So Christine, you hit on confidence. Confidence is important. And you almost have to go in with the mentality, guys, whether you sold one house or you sold 1,000 houses, you have to always go into this, mentality that you have options here that other realtors aren't going to offer. And you have to go in with the mentality that that seller needs you more than you need them, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. And, that obviously came with it. It's all about your mindset, right? It's about keeping knowledge in front of you, doing these all the time, and just always, I have one tomorrow night. There's 6 agents that are interviewing. I've never even heard of anybody interviewing 6 agents, but, knowing that and knowing that you're being competitive, what's on top of my mind all the time? How am I going to be different? How am I going to stand out? Am I going to ask them who they're interviewing? No, but I just know that I'm going to keep digging for something that I know none of them are going to be offering the client. I know my dialogue is going to have to be very strong. I know words are going to be very important. And then actions, are going to be most important to prove them. But I honestly, I am always trying to do some things someone else isn't, right? And it's not that I know how everyone else does business, but maybe I have to go on YouTube videos and look at West Coast. I do things to find that things aren't being done the same here. Right. And that's going to be an aha moment. I want to give that seller an aha moment that, wow, she was the only one that said that. She can do that. No one else told me that they could do that. I want that.
Yeah. And that's why it's important that the screen that's up, you read that bottom question or that bottom answer or question to the sellers when you do it. Can you see how these systems will create more demand for your home, helping it to sell faster for more money, right? So you see what makes us different. And you want to get them to agree that they see it, because if they don't see it, you didn't do your job presenting properly.
Right. Here's the other thing that's really important. Definitely create more demand for your home. We want the most amount of buyers in the least amount of time to create that demand. That is so important, of those pre-listing activities that I have set forth already to say, this is what's going to happen on day one. So setting that expectation. And also, we're in such a different market right now than I've been used to. It's really setting myself apart of, it's great. I have this awesome marketing plan, right? I am going to have professional photos. We're going to make sure your home is staged right. We're going to have, all of this momentum, all of this marketing. But what I'm also going to tell you, the key component to having a successful sale and close is an agent who's organized with activities and has a system in place for when you do have 25 showings, that your agent is talking with all of those showings, getting the feedback that's necessary, setting the expectation of what's important when we receive multiple offers, understanding my system that I have in place. When multiple offers are received, this is what needs to be done. And selling that part of in a listing presentation, I think, has become even more important, because I will tell you, I bet, only unless Brenda Maya or maybe Carol Stevens doing it, that's what we need to be selling right now.
Yeah.
Our systems and our tools in place, when we get all of those offers, and our system is, we're not going to miss an offer. We're not going to miss a beat on a phone call. I had 4009 Ryan Place. That weekend, I fielded 121 calls and 11 offers in one weekend. So you've got to be answering your phone. You've got to be documenting notes. You've got to have that spreadsheet of offers. You've got to have time period of offer. The last thing we want to do is, excuse the French, piss off any other agents out there that we're not handling this listing and their buyer and what they want to present to us, because there's a lot of that right now. I've been in multiple offers. I call the listing, they never call me. And that's frustrating, because I'm working for my buyer. So that being really, really communicative and detailed about what you do when multiple offers are received and what system you have in place, I think is a seller too.
Yeah. So what Christine just said too is kind of in that recap, you're letting them know, you're reminding them that who you choose is critical, because remember, there's a lot of steps in the sales timeline, and having a screen like this kind of illustrates it's not just about taking photos and putting your house on the market. There's a lot of additional stuff as well. And I have systems, I have processes, and I have resources in my office and my support staff to help me get you to that finish line. And just remind them of that. This is the type of screen. These are the types of things that are going to set you apart and show your value. Justin, what's some questions you got? Because I see your eyes kind of like twirling and thinking and processing. Open your mic.
Oh, I was just thinking about, I put in an offer for somebody and there were 19 other offers. And of course, the cash one won. But the agent who was the listing agent called every single person back last night.
Yeah.
And it's like, there could have been 40 people. So that person would have called them anyway.
Sometimes I know, Christine, without going too much into detail, you won an offer yesterday. You weren't the highest amount, right?
No.
Right. And
11 offers though.
11 offers.
That felt awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not.
Because I get beat up a lot too.
So,
sometimes you can only do as much as your buyer's willing to do, right? As much as you tell them that, putting your best foot forward is this, and this, they need to be comfortable with what they're doing, and that's okay. So, again, then it becomes leverage your relationship with the agent, leverage other things, not just about the dollar. That's really important too.
Now I want to add a little bonus. We got 1 minute here and we're going to take a 10-minute break, but a little bonus in this market right now too. When you're sitting with sellers, you got to let them know that, hey, we're in a market right now. It's very competitive. It's not unlikely that you won't end up in a multiple offer situation if we price correctly, which we're going to talk about. And if you're getting this much marketing and demand, and you want to make sure that you hire someone that's going to be able to navigate those offers and present you with all your options clearly so that you can make a decision that's going to pick the right offer for you. And it might not be the highest amount. And what do I mean by that? There's different things that we'll talk about when we get into pricing that could complex the offer that you accept. The goal is to take the one that's going to give you the most money in your pocket and get you across the finish line that you feel good about. How did I say that? It's not always the highest amount. The most money in your pocket that's going to get across the finish line is not necessarily the highest offer. So you want to have that added layer of conversation too, that we're trained heavily here at Run Real Estate Group to assist our sellers in making the right decision with them in this market and navigating them through all these different offers that they're going to get, how to pick the right one. So let's take a quick 10-minute break, and then we're going to talk about the other objection is pricing, and how do we get into that pricing conversation? How do we handle some of those pricing objectives and get a listing that is priced right, where you're in the driver's seat, not the seller? Because a lot of times, especially rookie agents, make the mistake of letting the seller dictate the terms, the price, and they become their biggest obstacle to getting the house sold. All right, go ahead, Anne-Marie, put the timer on, and then we'll come back here with pricing. Okay, do you see how market value is determined?
Yes.
So this is a sheet I've been using, should be in the listing packet still. Hopefully it is. If not, we're going to get it back in there. This is something I've always used, always before I go into a pricing conversation with the seller. Before we look at comparables and start talking pricing, I just want to go over a few bullet points with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, because I found by going through this sheet right now, it'll give a better understanding on how the process works of determining what market value is for your home, right? So market value is the highest amount a buyer is willing to pay in this market for your house. And it might not be a few things. So we're going to talk about a few things here. And then we're going to start looking at some of the comparables that I either have on the MLS I'll share with you, or some of the information I brought with me today. Or sometimes I'll look at the information and I'll say to the seller, you know what, I brought some information with me today, but I'm going to be candid and honest with you. I don't even like to look at it until I'm in the house. Why? Because I might be biased on price and I really wanted to see the home. Now that I've been in your house, I want to review some of this information with you, and then we can go through the data that I brought. Or I could say something, you know what, I glanced through the data that I brought. Now that I've seen your house, I feel like I want to go back and research some more. So we'll go over some stuff today, but I may need to dig a little bit deeper with regards to price. One thing before I get into this pricing conversation that I'm going to encourage you guys from day one to never do, or never try to do intentionally, is never let the price come out of your mouth. If you do this long enough, you do this well enough, the seller is going to come to a conclusion. Our job is to bring the sellers to a conclusion of where they should price it, not tell them what we feel our personal opinion is. And we'll talk about some examples. What do I mean by that? If they say, well, Brian, what do you think my house is worth? I'm not going to answer that question with a number. I'm going to answer that question with data, and then I'm going to put the question back on them. So based on the data that I just shared with you, where do you think you're comfortable pricing? Okay. And then you keep doing that until they get into a range that kind of aligns with where you were feeling or where we think we have a shot. And if we're too far off, I'll talk about, which that's going to happen too. I'll talk about what we do in those situations. So let's talk about this. I sit down with the seller. I went through the marketing presentation. Price and marketing, we discussed. It's what sells the house. You're comfortable with me. We're going to move forward. So let's come up with a pricing strategy for your house and get it priced right so that we can get this thing under contract and get you to where you need to be. But first, I want to talk about how market value is determined. At Miranda Real Estate Group, our goal is to get you market value. Top dollar for your house, which is market value. That's the highest amount a willing and able buyer is willing to pay for your property. See what I did there? Market value. It's not the number that they want to get. It's not other things. So we'll talk about, so what is market value and how do we determine it? Well, true real amount a buyer is willing to pay for your home today, right? Because they'll say 2 years ago, this house sold for X, or, I hear that, they're bringing in, I hear this one all the time. They're going to build another computer factory over here. So this house 2 years from now could be worth $200,000 more, right? But buyers care about what is priced today. Okay. So it's based on today's market. It's based on today's competition. So even in this market, guys, don't make the mistake of saying, yep, your house is going to sell quick. Expect a multiple offer situation, because what happens if someone says they want $300,000 for their house, but then all of a sudden 2 doors down, a neighbor lists their house for $250,000. Right? You can't control your competition. So it's based on today's competition. So we're going to look at your competition. What are the other active listings that you're in competition with? We're going to look at that. It's based on today's financing. We know that for a $300,000 house, there was more people that could qualify for that $300,000 house in November than they can today. Why? Anybody want to answer that question? Why is there less buyer pools in that $300,000 price point today than there was in November?
Interest rates.
Interest rates went up, right? So the interest rates going up, it knocked some people that were previously qualified for that price range out of the market. Remember, it's based on today's financing as well. The higher interest rates go up, that's why Fed raises the interest rates, is they're trying to slow down the economy, right? Too many people are spending money. There's too many inventory shortages, and that's going to impact the housing market eventually. Demand is still strong, but you're going to start to see, as interest rates go up, you're going to start to see things slow down. So you have to understand that concept that financing does play a part in pricing.
Brian, can I ask a question? I have a buyer and they can go up in the threes. I'm glad you actually said that because we were talking about that yesterday, some showings. They can go up in the threes, but we were looking at properties in the twos just to keep their, a little bit more comfortable, but we're getting outbid a lot. And, Sunday was like 4, it was gone $50,000 over asking on a lot of houses. So is it better for me? Because she asked me this question too. So if we went up higher in the threes, we're going to find less competition?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, for a seller, the lower the interest rates, right? The more people that qualify for the lower interest rate. When you raise the interest rates, what happens is there's less buyer now that were qualified. Let's say back in November when the rates were lower, some people got knocked off, right? And some people remain still qualified. So your people, if they're looking in the twos, but they're qualified up to 300,000, they probably are not going to be impacted by that. But to your point, talking with the buyer's agent hat on right now, I don't want them, if they're qualified at 300,000, I don't want them looking at houses for 300,000. I want them looking at houses between 2.25 and 250, so they have room to put an offer in and make themselves more competitive and still have that room and still qualify.
So if they're at 350, you could go at 3, but still give them that buffer, and they might have less competition. Because I know, the housing market, we're in the 2 at
it might just give them a little bit more of an advantage than someone that is maxed out at 300,000, right?
Okay.
So it's all relative depending on the situation. But my point I'm trying to make here with this slide is that the higher interest rates go up, the less people are going to qualify in that price point, in that bucket, okay, than in previous markets. So based on today's economic conditions, things are going on around us right now that really haven't sunk their teeth into the housing market, but potentially can. If the economy starts to struggle, and mostly tied to unemployment, which unemployment right now is at all-time lows. 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗶ＨI's locally here was to start to close the plant down like GE did years ago, right? And people's income levels weren't maintained the same way. And you start to see people starting to sell the house and move out of the area. Like that could have a factor on price. There's no longer that demand or that surge of buyers coming into this market looking to make a move here in the Capital District if we're under poor economic conditions. So right now, the economy is pretty strong here. The housing market's still pretty strong here in the United States. So right now it's pretty favorable conditions. You might want to take advantage of it right now, getting your house on the market, because who knows, we don't have a glass crystal ball. 6 months, a year from now, it might not be as good, as lucrative. So market value has to do with today's market, today's competition, financing, interest rates, economic conditions, based on buyers' perception of the property condition. And we're going to talk about this because I was talking to an agent last night. She got a call for a listing appointment, doesn't know what to do because that seller wants $1 million for their house. And in their mind, the house is worth, their perception, it's worth $1 million because it's big, it's on a nice piece of land, but it's also very outdated. Almost every single room in that house has to be updated. I'm talking about kitchens, baths, wallpaper, paint, exterior, old siding, exterior. So in their mind, they've lived there all these years, right? So they feel the house is worth a certain amount, but it really doesn't matter what the seller thinks. Only one person knows what that house is going to sell for. You guys know who that person is? One person, maybe 2 people. Go ahead, Justin.
The person that is selling it, because they're going to accept the offer.
No. Close. It's the person that's going to buy it, right?
The buyer.
The buyer is going to determine the price because they're the one making the offer, the initial offer, right? It's up to the seller whether or not they want to accept it or not, but the buyer is going to determine the price in the way of the offer. And the market value is the highest offer, the highest amount that a buyer is willing to offer. So by going through this exercise and going through this document, you're trying to help the seller get to that mindset where they're not going to be the ones to determine the price. The market is. Okay. I'm saying the buyer, but typically the market is going to set the price. Okay. And think about a consumer. And I use cars as an analogy all the time. You don't go to buy a new car and go to the lot and say, show me the oldest one and the most expensive one. I want to pay top dollar for a car with 100,000 miles on it. Might be a reputable brand, right? But at the end of the day, if it's got 100,000 miles on it and they haven't changed the tires, or they haven't updated the paint, they might have maintained it well. But are you going to pay top dollar for that vehicle? So you want to make sure that you're kind of using something else to compare the strategy, the mindset, right? Without insulting them. That's very, you want to be, hey, I'm just trying to help us to get to a right price. But this is why it's important that we're both on the same page as to what market value is, because buyers are looking for a big selection. They're looking for a good deal, and they're looking for something to be easy. So we want to be the one that stands out in the selection that they have. We want to present them with value so that at least we get more people enticed in it so we can drive the price up, right? And we want to try to get with a buyer that, we can collectively come to the same page and get to the closing table easy. I know you don't want problems. Well, neither does the buyer, right? So let's not put all these crazy obstacles in the way and try to, make it. I had one potential seller telling me, I want to put my house on the market and it's only going to be cash buyers, no inspections, and they have to be able to close in 3 weeks or I'm not selling to them. Good. You know what you just did? You took a buyer pool that was this big and you just made it this small, okay? How's that going to get you top dollar, right? Remember I said more demand equals more money for you. And I got a news flash for you. They don't bring briefcases or cash to the closing, right? You're going to walk away with that closing table with a check, whether that person is paying cash or getting financed, right? The same amount of money is still going to get deposited into your account. So sometimes we have to walk people through their thoughts, and having a nice tool like this that's in black and white is going to assist you and help them get there. And it's important that you do this before the pricing conversation, because what you need to do is they got their defenses up, they're pounding their chest. This is my price. I'm not going to give it away. Using this document is taking down one brick at a time and getting them to a point where they can kind of hear what you're saying. All right. So let's just recap. I'm going to go through this quickly now. Here's what market value is for your home. It's the highest amount someone's willing to pay for your house today, not 2 years ago, not 3 years ago, because you'll hear that. They'll start comparing what the neighbor's house sold for, what the house down the street sold for in a different market. Here's what market value is not. This is big, because if you go into this pricing document without this sheet, I'll guarantee you're going to hear one or more of these bullet points that we're about to go over. It's not what you have into it, right? The lady with the $1 million house. Well, I just paved the driveway and the furnace is 10 years old. And what else did we do? We replaced the furnace, we paved the driveway. And 8 years ago, we had to spend $3,000 to have a roof over the garage put back on. Well, that's like me saying that, I should get $50,000 more for my car because I changed the oil and I changed out the tires. Those are maintenance items. You're supposed to do that. Those are maintenance items. A buyer will appreciate it, but they're not going to pay you more because you maintain the vehicle. Ultimately, the condition will net you a little bit more money, but those are things that are expected to be done to a vehicle, and those are things that are expected to be done to a house. So it's not what you have in it, right? I put in $50,000 in marble into the kitchen alone. That was a choice that you made to do it. I don't know if, unless your competitors are doing something like that, if that's going to have a difference. Maybe if that's special and unique to that one buyer, they might see the value in it and be willing to offer more for it. But just because you have a certain amount of money invested into the property and things that you wanted to have in that property doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that dollar for dollar return back on that money. It's not what you need to get out of it. You'll hear people say things like, well, I want to sell the house because. And that's why it's important when I go back to asking, why are you selling? Why am I here today? Why are you selling your house? And you might hear some people say, well, I need to sell my house because I want to pay off all my debt. I'm looking to move down south in the next 6 months. And I got some, loans I want to get rid of. And I'd like to purchase a condo down in Myrtle Beach, right? When I sell. Okay, well, in order for me to do that, I need to get $300,000 for my house because I owe $250,000 on the house. I want to take $20,000 and pay off my student loans and my credit cards. And then I want to use $30,000 as a down payment on the condos. And condos just went up. So I think I'm going to ask $315,000 for the house. Buyers don't care. When they're looking at price, they're not looking at price from the same mindset that the seller is, where, I think I'm going to pay an extra $10,000 for this house because I know they need to pay off a student loan, or I know they want to pay off a credit card, right? Buyers don't care. And that's more so in a buyer's market right now, that buyers are a little bit more stubborn like that. But even in this market where sellers are pretty much getting what they're hoping to get, some sellers are getting a little crazy, right? And some buyers are just getting turned off by it, or they're willing to go up to a certain amount and that's it. And then they tap out, right? So it's not necessarily what you need to get out of the house. That makes sense? It's not this is a big one. It's not what it appraised for. I know the house just appraised for $400,000. So I think I should be able to get 420, no problem. Appraised value is just an appraiser's opinion. It's not market value, right? It's not, you can have a house appraised. I gave an example in the countryside. They'll look at, recent comparables and they'll make adjustments and different things like that. A house can appraise for a higher amount, but doesn't mean that there's going to be at that given time in today's market, buyers that will pay that appraised value. It's a good indicator. We're in the ballpark. That's not the end all be all. That's just basically what a bank is willing to finance the house for at the time of the appraisal. There could have been some things that have happened since then. Interest rates could have been adjusted. House next to you or within the perimeter of you could have sold for less. That impacts the value of your house. So appraised value is just an opinion at a given time, but it at least gives us an indication of what a bank is willing to finance the house for. It's not this is a big one. It's not what your house is assessed for. Assessment is a formula that a town or municipality will use to come up with a standardized value to try to make all houses in their market even so that they could use it for a tax basis. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the value of your house. That just means that's where your house falls into with regards to your neighbors and other different things. And what happens with assessment is usually a third of the town is assessed too high, and they agree with their taxes. A third of them are priced too low. In other words, the town didn't find out that they put in a finished basement or a deck or a shed or anything else that's going to raise their assessment. And then you have usually about a third that are priced or assessed where they need to be. So assessed value could be too low. If you look at assessed value, it might be too low. We might be able to get you more than assessed value. So I don't want you to get hung up on assessed value, or it might be just too high as well. So assessed value is just for the town's purposes and for tax purposes. So let's ignore that one right now. Buyer doesn't have anything to do with assessed value. It's not what your neighbor's house sold for. We talked about that. If it's at a different time in a different market, we have to look at the factors up above that we just went over. That's what's going to impact the price of your house. Another big one is what it's insured for. What it's insured for doesn't factor in depreciation. What it's insured for is factoring in what would it cost today to replace that house. We might be putting a house on the market. I'm just using $300,000. It's round numbers. But the house is 12 years old, $300,000. It's what it's worth. But if you had to rebuild that same house today, it would probably cost you $400,000. Why? Materials are a lot higher. Contractors are a lot higher. So you need to get an insurance policy for that $300,000 house. If it was to catch fire or, God forbid, a tree fell through it and you had to rebuild it, you don't want $300,000 worth of coverage because that $300,000 worth of coverage is not going to give you the same house. Does that make sense? So when you look at your insurance statement, hopefully you're paying a premium that shows a little bit higher value on your insurance, and that's replacement cost. And this is a big one that you're going to run into. And I had this conversation last night with another agent. She was describing the seller on the phone to me, and I come right to this bullet point right here. Based on personal feelings, years lived in, memories, etc. People have sentimental value, and that sentimental value doesn't always translate to a buyer's opinion of price. Let me say that again. People have sentimental value, but that sentimental value doesn't always appeal to a buyer's perception of price. So what do I mean by that is if somebody spent years there, right? My kids grew up here. I love when I go into bedroom closets and you see where they mark, here's when Billy was 4, and here's when he was 8, and here's when he graduated high school, and you could see the progression. And that sentimental attachment to that property, sellers automatically put a premium on it. I used to call it $30,000. Everyone thinks their house is $30,000, worth $30,000 more than what it really becomes. And I joke about it. I'm guilty of it. I did it myself. We always think that things that we own are worth more money than what they really are. Right. And it's because we have that attachment to it, that sentimental value to it. So if I'm talking to a high S personality type, I'll elaborate on this a little bit more. And if I see all the family photos and, they talk about how one of the last things I did with my father is he helped me build this deck on the back. And, we spent 3 weekends doing it. And so that's a sentimental attachment there. We had my daughter's wedding in the yard. It was so beautiful. All the neighbors came over and our friends and family. It was a beautiful sunny day and all this. If you hear that, you got to be mindful of that seller automatically has an emotional, sentimental attachment to that property. They need to let go of that premium that they're putting on for that because buyers don't care. Do you care when you look at a house, when you're buying? I love when I have a seller who's also a buyer. Do you care if they spent 4 weekends, doing all this, grout themselves on the tile in the hallway? Do you really care whether they had a contractor do it or if they did it and it took them 3 more additional months? I mean, if it came out great, if it didn't, you're probably like, oh, especially if it didn't come out. I could tell that they did it on their own. It's not as nice, right? But my point is that based on their personal feelings of their house, they have to detach that. And I'm going to challenge them. And when I read that line, I'm going to challenge you. When we start to talk about price, I'm going to challenge you to take your emotions out of it. I know it's difficult because you've lived in this house for so many years, or you have so much sweat equity. This also applies to flippers, this thing right now, what they got into it and how much time. They put so much passion and energy in their mind when they bought that property. Ooh, I can make X amount of profit. I'm going to put this in and I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend this weekend here doing painter, and I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to have the best tile guy that I know come over and do this. Their personal feelings, they have to accept what the market is dictating and take the personal feelings out of it, because a buyer is not automatically going to pay a premium because the seller has an attachment to it. If that's the case, I would say you're probably better off keeping the property. I spent a little bit of time on that one because that's one that you're going to pretty much run into with every listing. Someone's going to have those. It's rare that you're going to walk into a situation where the seller says, you know what, I don't even care. I lived here 20 years. I just want to be done. I want to move on. Let them take it. I'm going to give this away, give that away, give that away. Bottom line, if they make me a decent offer, they can have it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's going to be rare. Usually sellers are, I'm not giving it away. I got too much time and energy in this house. I had to redo every room. I painted, I did this, I did that. Or I paid this guy to come in, that guy to come in, this girl to come in, whatever. Personal attachments. It's not based on prices and homes where they're moving. Well, I got to get $15,000 to $30,000 more for my house now because all the prices just went up in Myrtle Beach. I can't get that condo I was looking at 6 months ago now if I sell for this price. Buyers don't care. They don't care. I'm a little extreme. Now I'm looking like Anthony doing handstand. Buyers don't care if the prices went up where you're looking, right? They're not going to pay a premium for a house above and beyond market value, appraised value, because you need to get more money out of it because you're going somewhere else. Now, I trained you guys as buyer's agents to ask the listing agent what's important to the seller, okay, when you're writing the offer. Now, they're going to tell you things like what's important to them is they want to move, they're relocating out of the area. So if they can stay an extra month before their house is ready or built, that's a reasonable expectation. But if that agent was to say they're looking for someone to pay them $50,000 more than any other offer because prices just went up by $50,000 where they're looking in Florida, some buyers might bite at that, but most buyers are going to be like, what? They don't care. So having a conversation with the seller, when you go through this, what it does is you're going to do it politely. I'm a little bit more extreme right now for training purposes, but I go and I get them to agree what market value is. And it's based on these items on top. It's not based on what these items here on the bottom. What did I just do? I just took that objection. Remember, we're talking about objections. I just took that objection away from them, right? Because they just agreed with me what market value is. And I already have this here in front of their face in black and white, what market value is. So they can't tell me, well, you know what, I need to get 300,000 because it appraised for 295 and I think it's worth 300,000. Appraisal is just what a bank will finance. That's great. But let's not just base our pricing just on that alone. Let's look at some other sources of price too. Okay. It's, I need to get 300,000 because, I have to pay this off, pay that off, pay that off. I just took that objection away from them. Buyers don't care. By using this document, let the document do the dirty work for you, right? So that your seller is not getting defensive with you. So I'm just sharing this information. I just want to go over this information that's provided with us. What we found and a lot of studies have shown is that sellers don't really have a good indication of market value. And what happens is they overprice it. And it could affect their bottom line, what they end up walking away with. So before we get into pricing conversation, let's just get on the same page as to what the research says market value is. In other words, not what I say, what the research says market value is. So you want to get them to buy into that and they agree that this document is going to get them on the same level where you are before you even look at one comparable. I'm spending a lot of time on this because this is where a lot of agents go wrong. This is where a lot of agents will let the seller dictate price. This is where a lot of agents will throw out a number and put the wall up so the seller doesn't hear anything else they have to say. What happens is you create the biggest obstacle in the transaction, and that's the seller. You want that seller to be motivated. You want that seller to be on your team, and you want that seller to cooperate in pricing your house so that they could end up with a top dollar. You want to be positive about it too. You know what? If anyone can get you top dollar, I know our marketing can. We want to go into this. I talked about the word strategy. We want to go into marketing and price is what's going to sell us the house. We already talked about the marketing. Well, let's get a good strategy with price. In order to do that, let's both get an understanding of what market value is. That's the highest amount someone's willing to pay. Here's what it is based off of. Here's what it's not based off of. Any questions? As a seller, here's some of the things that you can control. Access to the property when it's needed. I just talked to an agent yesterday. He's listing a 2-family. put control of the showings in the tenant's hands. Doesn't have, I ask, how come there's no pictures of the apartment? Well, the tenant would have let the photographer in. Don't you think that's important? Do you think someone's going to buy a car without driving it or test driving it or looking in the inside of it at least, or even looking at photos of it? In any sale, they need to go in and be able to see it. So what happens now is the seller allowed the tenants to be an obstacle, and not having access is going to affect what? Demand and offers. They might have people that are willing to pay $20,000, $30,000 over ask. But if they can't get in to see it, they're not going to send an offer in. So you got to be logical with them. Or we've had this in the past, single family residential sellers who want the house to be shown on their timetable. No showings after 5 and or on the weekends. I want them blocked. I'm going to cancel. Well, when do most buyers look? Nights and weekends, right? You want to try to accommodate every showing, in my opinion, because the more showings, the more demand ends up with more options for you to decide from. And it could be more money in your pocket. So you want to try, if you're putting your house on the market, and I tell people in this market too, probably a good idea your first weekend, and I'm going to defer to, I don't know if Brenda's still on the line here. On your first weekend, it's probably a good idea if you're planning on taking a short trip somewheres, or maybe you got someone that you could stay with, you probably want to do that because we're going to have back-to-back showings. And you have a great house here. I think the marketing and the price, if it's priced right, you're going to have back-to-back. And I hate to see you having to come, go, right? But you want to let all those showings come in because all those showings are going to be hopefully driving the competition to create more of a higher offer for you to choose from, more options for you to choose from. You have to let sellers do that. And sellers like, well, you know what? I just want people here when I want them here. That's great. We can, try to put some parameters in, but I'm going to encourage you to try to accommodate every showing possible. Because also too, remember, you're handcuffing me in my marketing and my ability. You hired me as a professional to get you top dollar. And I really can't do my job if you're not allowing that results of my marketing to work out in the form of showings. Anything you want to add to that, Brenda, with regards to showing, making the house available? Do you have a spiel about showings?
Just setting that expectation, by letting them know that having a house on the market, one of the very first things I tell them is this will be stressful. It's not fun to be a seller. And I want you to embrace that right out of the gate because everybody's hearing from their friends and family, oh, you're just going to get tons of money thrown at you and, you get a great offer and then you go. We all know that it's not like that. So setting that expectation right from the get-go and letting them know the first few days are going to be crazy. You are not going to have a traditional dinner schedule. You're not going to be able to come home from work and relax. So let's talk about that. What are you going to do with Fido? What are you going to do with the kid? What are you going to do with all of it? Let's set it up and again, manage the expectation. That's the reality of it, that you really have to, that's where I think we see a lot of value or we can portray a lot of value in talking about that real life stuff, not just getting in there. And like you said earlier, Brian, blah, 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 blah. I'm so great.
And that's what this document is all
problem
about.
Right out of the gate.
Yep. Setting the expectation. And that's what this document is designed to do.
Yep.
Go ahead. What are you going to say, Brenda?
No, I'm good. I'll shut up.
I'm going to wrap up this document and I'm going to turn it over to Anne-Marie to kind of go through a comparable and pricing and setting the price. But you guys could have the best comparables. You could have the best process in regards to setting the price. But if you don't have this conversation first, it's going to fall on deaf ears, is my point. This is the biggest thing that you have to learn is how to have the conversation about pricing and what it means to seller and prevent the seller from being their own worst obstacle, right? Because they control the price. They can't control market conditions. They can't control the motivation of their competition, as I used the example before, right? If someone else is underselling them, then they're just helping that person sell faster. If they want to price higher than the 2 or 3 other houses around them that buyers have options to, then unless their house is immaculate and stunning, which they all believe it is, they're just helping those. They got to wait for those other 2 houses to sell first before people start to look at their house. Pricing, marketing, and the condition is what's ultimately going to sell their house. So they need to not only have the marketing, they need to also have a good condition, make sure that the beds are made. I say make sure that the sink is cleared of dishes, the house is ready to show. Because when buyers come in, if they start to see little things like cracked switch plates on the wall that cost 80 cents to replace, different things, their mind starts to deduct dollars from the offer. So you want to make sure you have it in good condition. Any questions on this before we get into some of the other pricing stuff? So a pricing strategy, I also show them this. I think we have it in the presentation as well as my triangle here. I like to price, if I can, buyers look online on $25,000 increments. If they're looking to put their house, the example here was 250 was the market value. They're looking to put their house on the market for, let's say, 257. I want 257. I say, let's price that 250 even, because now you're going to get the buyers that are looking up to 250 and the people that are looking 250 and above. You're doubling that buyer pool versus just looking at people that are 250 to 275 or 250 to 300,000. And you want to put it flat on the increment. I don't like pricing a house at 249.9. Why? Anybody know why? Perception is it looks cheaper, but what are you doing in regards to search results online? People are set up on automatic searches.
You're
You got
greatly limiting it.
Yeah, you're eliminating a whole buyer bracket for $1, right? If you're pricing a house at 249.9, anybody that says, I'm going to look at houses between 250 and 300,000, they don't see that house for 249.9 because of $1. You want to be smart about the starting price if it's close to a popular increment that people search on the internet.
If
right?
I can just add,
Yeah.
there are so few agents who recognize that. And when you explain that to sellers, like you see
They're like,
this, like their
"Oh."
eyes, yeah, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that $100 difference, anybody, I mean, a lot of times we'll add a minimum number too. So
Right.
anybody who starts or stops their search with
Yeah.
that number, you're going to get them versus that $100 bumping half of them out.
Right.
It's huge.
So that's one strategy with regards to pricing here. Now, just to explain the triangle really quick too, is I also try to say that they want to meet the market where there's demand, right? So if this is the amount, this represents the amount of buyers in the market right now. As we go up in price, the amount of buyers that are interested in paying that price for that property goes down. So what happens when you price a listing too high, there's a buyer out there. It might take you a lot longer to find it, but if you don't find that buyer, what do you have to do? You have to come down in price to get more buyers. And I always share this explanation. Like if we're going for 250 for this house, what do you think would happen, Ryan, if I was to say to the seller, let's list it at 200,000? What do you think would happen to that property? If this property is truly worth 250,000 plus, and we decide to go on the market at 200,000, especially in this environment, what's going to happen?
It's going to sell immediately.
What else is going to happen? Is it going to sell for 200?
No, it'll sell for like 250 or 270.
You're more than likely going to end up in a bidding war, right? And what's going to happen is people are going to bid up, bid up, bid up, bid up, and then we're going to get market value. And that's the highest amount someone's willing to pay, right? That's when everyone else taps out. The message here to the seller when you illustrate and draw it like this is it's very challenging, very difficult, not impossible for me to price your house too low, because if I price it below market value, the market's going to respond. If we're allowing all the showings to come in, people to access the property in a reasonable amount of time, you can expect to get a multiple bidding situation that's going to drive the price up. Might not drive it up to the 250, might drive it on beyond the 250 or close to it, but I'll guarantee you this, it's going to be market value, the highest amount that we just determined that someone's willing to pay for your property, and that's market value. So whether we start off high here and do price reductions over time and come to market value, or we start off very low and rapidly end up here. And the beauty about this too, if they feel that they're pricing it too low, they don't have to say yes. We could price your house at 250. In your mind, you don't want to let it go for under 260. If someone comes in and gives you an offer of 250, you don't have to say yes to that offer. Even if you're listed for that price, you could say, you know what, I thought about it and my counter to you is 260. Yeah, but you're listed at 250. I mean, I'm just for devil's advocate here. That's not what really happens, but there's nothing that says there's a gun to your head. You listed at 250. You have to accept that offer that comes in at 250 if you have no other offers. The seller can do anything. If the seller has a multiple offer situation and they have 9 offers and one of them is $100,000 over their asking price and another one is $50,000 below their asking price, they could take the one $50,000 below their asking price. Why? It's their decision, right? There's no law that says they have to take the best and highest offer. We ask for best and final so that the seller has options, but they don't have to take that. Christine just proved that. She just 1 out of 11 offers and she wasn't the highest offer. She had the best offer that fit the seller's needs that the seller was comfortable with. So when you're talking pricing strategy with them, it's not just about the price either. Don't worry so much about the price. The market will dictate the price and will get us there. That's why I'm trying to illustrate this to them. So we're going to give them some tools. We're going to give them some comparables to think about, but I want you guys to use the definition of what market value is. And even an illustration like this, I prefer to draw it. That's why you see it handwritten and drawn like that. Every listing appointment I go, I have a notepad, I draw a triangle. I look at what the price ranges are that Anne-Marie is going to show us. And I plot it out on the map. Here's the high, here's the low, and I kind of give them, here's the sweet spot. In this example here, the sweet spot is around 250, right? If we go too high, we're going to lose buyers. If we go too low, we're going to gain buyers, but we could create a bidding war. Make sense? And that's why you guys see that slide in your listing appointment that talks about the different pricing and what the triangle is. So with that being said, I know I went a little bit long on this, but hopefully, Anne-Marie, you can kind of show them. I want you to show them a property, pull up one of the tools I use. I usually like to get 3 sources. I like to use an RPR, which I showed you guys in previous training, which will show me a range, and I'll explain that to the seller what the range is, high, low, confidence level on a property. But I also like to look at the MLS and look for comparable properties that have sold within their area. What a buyer's going to have access to that they're going to see. They're all going to see the Zestimate. But Zestimate isn't the end all be all. A lot of sellers will say, I want $1 million for my property. Well, why? Oh, because I saw the Zestimate on it. And then Carol's got a great article, and a lot of other agents have a great article where you show them the CEO of Zillow, how his property was grossly deflated to what its true value was. It was off. So Zillow isn't always accurate, right? You want to show them more than one source. And then the other component that I use too is if they're getting ready to move, here's when you're sitting down before you get in a pricing conversation, you can interview them, kind of ask them this. We're going to look for comparables. Well, let me ask you something, Anne-Marie. What's the property that you have here that you're pulling up that you're going to price? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you share your screen. I'm going to talk a little dialogue here, and then I'll let you do the talking. I'm going to shut up.
It's 7A Woodcliff, Clifton Park.
7A Woodcliff. So before we get into the conversation, right, we're going to look at some of these comparables here, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I just showed you what market value is. But before we do all of this, did you have a number in mind? You want to know whether it's relative or not to information that you looked at. Now, I don't lead them to believe that I saw the numbers because I want to look at some numbers with you, and I want you to see it through my eyes and through what's going on with the market. But just, well, that's what we have you here for, Brian. Well, in a perfect world today, if you were to get an offer today, what would you like that number to be? And you want to try to get out where their mindset is because you want to know how much of a gap do you have to close to get them to a reasonable price. And remember, some of those objections, this is where some of those objections are going to come out. Well, I'm not going to give it away because I got this in it, and got that in it, and we had a wedding in the back, and blah, 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 right? All those different things, right? You just kind of like pulled out of their arsenal. They have to rethink about that now. But we're going to get through some of the comparables that Anne-Marie is going to show. But if it's not aligned with the comparables, the other objection that you have for pricing is, I'm looking at the data and I'm with you. I think you have a great house here. If anyone can get you $1 million for your house, I know it's our marketing. But here's what my concern is. My concern is, I'm saying this now because I don't want to forget to see it later. My concern is, even if we got you a buyer that's willing to pay that much, we don't see those comparables here in the system. And this is the same data a bank appraiser is going to use. So what's that mean? That means even if we find a buyer that has excellent credit in the 800s, right? They have 6-figure income, they're more than qualified financially for your property, they have to apply for a mortgage. And what's going to happen is they're going to take that mortgage to the underwriter, and the underwriter who makes the decision whether or not they're going to get that mortgage is going to look at their income and their debt to income ratio and all the things that are in their pre-approval letter. And they're going to say, okay, they're qualified. But then that underwriter is going to say, where's the bank appraisal? And they're going to look at a bank appraisal. And that bank appraiser that the bank sends out is going to be looking at the same data that you and I are looking at right now, or close to it. So my concern is that I don't want to have to call you 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the transaction when you're already making plans to move, you hired movers, possibly even put an offer in on our property. And I'm going to say, we have a problem here. Bank, the house didn't appraise because the appraiser couldn't come up with the same comparables to justify the value that we asked. And that essentially means that the buyer doesn't have to buy the house, and oftentimes means the deal is dead there, which is tragedy. We could put it back on the market, but unless we have some other comparables that come on the market to justify it, we're probably going to run into that situation over and over again. So it's critical that when we're talking price strategy, part of our strategy is to get it priced right so that it can make it through that appraisal hurdle and we can get you to the closing table. You have to paint that picture in their mind. Because when they're asking for the moon, the stars, and the skies, they're not thinking about the bank. They're not thinking about the appraiser, and they're not thinking about the impact that deal falling apart. Well, if they don't get approved for a mortgage, that's their problem, not mine. Some cases in this market, we do see buyers paying the difference, but they have to agree to that up front. Sometimes, if it's too much of a gap, the buyers have an automatic, we can't force them to purchase the property. And that leaves us just entertaining cash offers because the bank won't deal with us. And that will significantly shrink your buyer pool. So that means less demand on your house, means lower offers. And I don't know about you, but anytime people pay cash for something, they want what? They want a deal, a discount, right? They're not going to pay top dollar. And if they have $300,000, $400,000, God bless them, to pay cash for something, they probably are going to want to get their own independent appraisal done anyways to make sure they're not overpaying. So with that being said, Anne-Marie, I'll turn it over to you. Show us, I know you've been showing us some Flex Fridays, how to do some CMAs and some cost comparable analysis. maybe take through a sample here of an RPR and a couple different sources that we would share with the seller.
So to do a comparable or a CMA, you would obviously be doing it on a certain property. So to do that, you're going to do a quick search. So you need to know about the property. We know it has 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, was built in 1986, and the square footage is 1,400. So that's pretty much mostly what you need. So if you go to Flex, I'm just going to leave that one up in that screen. And then if you go under quick search, and then you're going to go to closed, because we want to do comparables. So you're just going to click on close. Some people do pending and closed, but pending, we don't know what it closed for. So, and then you're going to go into the sold date. Now the sold date, you can either, these little arrows are a toggle. So you can either toggle the date range or you can put in the days. So we're going to go back, let's say the last 6 months. So we'll go back 180 days, and then property subtype. That was a townhouse. So we want duplex. And then you're going to go down, and it's in Clifton Park in Shenandoah School District. Oh, down. And they want Shenandoah School District. Oh, sorry.
You missed something because your results dropped to 0 already.
Oh, sorry. Single family.
Oh, you know what? You're under residential lease, Amory.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, guys. So let's start over. Yeah, always make sure this is correct. I was looking for leases one day, so always double check your template. So we want closed. You hit the control down, control and enter. And then here we have 180 days. We're not going to put the price in because we want to know what the price is. So here we go. It's a townhouse and it's Clifton Park. And they want Shenandoah.
SHN.
Yeah, it's just SHN.
Yeah, go
What's
back.
that?
You got the wrong one.
I know it's not there. I think this is the school in Shenandoah.
Oh, you
No,
got
there's no
C. They
C.
picked the C out.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I'm spelling it wrong. Oh, sorry, guys. And still. Okay, so year built. So we'll do the range. It was 1986. So we'll say like 1980 to 1995. Just do a range. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and we have 13 results. So let's check the 13 results. And most of the time I will look at pictures to compare it to any upgrades that have been done in the house. So you would have looked at the house prior, obviously you know the house. So if you go through and you look at the pictures and you see what has been upgraded, so this one doesn't look like it has a whole lot of upgrades. Looks like maybe they put some new floor in. So you would pick I'm going to do this quick because we're short of time, but you would go through each of these, look at the pictures, look at the similar styles, and then pick the ones that you feel are the closest to it. So I'm going to say, I know Glenbrook is right there. I know Glenbrook is right in that neighborhood. Woodcliff is on the same street, and Tallowood is right over there. So I'm going to pick these 4. So if you go to CMA, I know this is quick, but we'll do another CMA class. I just want to give you guys a little idea on how to do them. Choose selected. You can either do a full CMA, a quick CMA, or a statistical CMA. If you just need a quick CMA, you can do quick CMA and next. If you want to do a cover page, you can do a cover page. We're just going to do a quick side-by-side comparison. You can email it to your client. You can save it on your computer or download it to a PDF. Right now, we're just going to view it. And here it will give you the properties. So the property is up and down. So these statistics go to this property. This goes to this goes to this one. And then it should give you the median price analysis. It's going to show you what they were listed for and what they sold for. The blue is what they sold for. The green is what they listed for. And then low, medium, and high. And then it's going to give you the median price right here is $252. The average is $258. So that kind of helps you with your CMA. So that's your quick CMA. And then if we go back, so if we go to the other flex, I'll show you with RPR. So if you're in your listing under flex and you go to RPR, I know I'm doing this quick, but I know we're out of time. So I'm just go to RPR. This is going to come up with your range. So right here, it's saying this property, the list price is $234. The average is $238. And it has a range of 217 to 260 with a 5-star confidence. So it's saying that this range, they're confident with this range. So depending on the upgrades and the property condition would be whether it's in the lower or higher end of the range. Brian, did you want to?
Yeah, so what I do is I take the CMA that you just had. If you go back to that CMA for a second,
Yep,
you just had it down on the bottom when you had all the stats.
yep,
Scroll down to the bottom where it shows the average, the median.
yep.
So you want to look at that where it says, there's a range, it's a wide range from 200 to 327. Here's what the average is, 258, 252. You looked at the photos and here I try to pick one or two that are closest comparison to them. And what's going to happen is they're going to say, oh yeah, that one's got an updated appliances. We still need appliances. They're going to be able to kind of size up. And that's why I like doing it sometimes on a big screen too in the office, because they can kind of see upgrades that the other houses have that they don't. But here's the thing. If you have someone that's asking right now, I want 350 for this house, and you see what the high is, and you can pull up that property, what the high was, and they could see that it doesn't compare. At this point, you could say, here's the RPR, go into the RPR, and it says based on data that's closed, go back to the RPR for a second, based on data of properties that have closed in your area that are similar, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,408 square feet, same location, same school district, everything being the same. It's pretty confident. The system's pretty good. It's kind of like Zestimate, but a little bit more accurate because of the range that your house is going to fall somewhere between 217 on the low side based on condition to 260. Okay. So I know you had told me originally that you wanted to get a higher price for that. Based on this information that I'm sharing with you, where do you think we should price it now? And I shut up. To Brenda's point. You let them say the number. You don't say the number. And if they say, well, like I told you, Brian, I want $300,000 for the house. Okay, well, how are you coming up with that number? Okay, because again, remember, I just want to make sure that, if anyone can get you 300, I know we can deal with our marketing, but I'm concerned about the bank. I want to make sure that we are priced strategically enough that we can still get someone to finance it as well. And I shut up. Because what will happen is if they see enough of the data, they will come to their own conclusion. It's happened before in the past where I've had couples literally arguing and saying, no, we have to be, I told you, it's not 300,000. We have to be priced closer to 260 is the high end, right? Let's stay close to that number. Now, I don't have a problem going a little bit higher than that number. If you want to start off a little bit higher number, I just want to set the expectation that if things happen down the road, I don't want you to say we didn't have this conversation. Like basically, I'm just the messenger. Don't kill the messenger. I'm sharing with you right now something for you to look out for. Take it for what it's worth. I'm not saying no and I won't list it. Now, if they're saying something that is outrageous, I want 350 for the house, 325. I say, you know what? I can understand. You have a certain number in mind that you have to, but based on the data that's out here, ethically, I can't list it at that price, and it doesn't make business sense for me to charge and invest money in marketing your home, knowing it's not going to get to the finish line, because I don't get paid a penny until we close. So being in business and making a good business decision, I would be more comfortable listing your property and getting you something I know can get you across that finish line. And then that's fine. If you feel like, you're going to list based on price and someone who tells you the better price, I know you're smarter than that, but if you feel like you're better suited with someone that's going to tell you a price that's unrealistic, I understand, but I don't think I'm your person. That's reverse psychology, right? Yep. People want what they can't have. I just showed you all the tools, all the value, everything I have. You don't like that I'm sharing with you information that's realistic. They're probably not my client, to be honest with you. I probably don't want to work with them either if they're not motivated and they're not realistic.
Right.
If they're close to the high end and I can work with them over time, great. But sometimes, unfortunately, they're going to take the realtor that gives them the highest price, and then that realtor is going to beat them up for price reductions. I want to get you priced right out the gate so that we can anticipate multiple offers. I don't want to be sitting there having a conversation with you, trying to beat you down on price later on. So it's all about handling those objections. The technicalities of coming up with the CMA. Amory is going to do another class separate from this too. Don't worry so much about that as the dialogue and the conversations of explaining to them what market value is, and then sharing that appraisal conversation with them too. Why does it make sense to overprice the listing? Take the emotional attachment out of it. Let's price off and follow the data, what the data is telling us, so that we can get you top dollar for your house and get you to move on. I know you want to move down to Myrtle Beach. I don't want to be sensitive to Ryan. You had your hand raised. Did you have a question way back?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something just because I've been running into it a lot recently. I did an ad for the sell section of my website, so I've been getting CMA requests. And if you're looking
hold on a second. Did you say you ran an ad and you're getting requests for CMAs?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it actually works.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yeah, I
Go
have
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but just.
yeah, I have a listing appointment on Thursday from it.
Hold on a second. You got a listing appointment from it too?
Yeah.
You guys see the little hand on his screen? Boom, high five. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
you.
no, but what I wanted to say was if you're doing a CMA on a property that hasn't been listed in a good, like a couple of years, I found that in RPR, if you don't go in and confirm the property facts, what it'll actually do is it'll double the square footage. So like for that property that she's doing, it'll run your reports at like 2,800 square feet. So
And this is why you want to use more than one source, because
I
you
was
want
just
to
gonna
compare
say that,
to
yeah.
make sure it's accurate.
Don't
Don't
just use
put all your eggs in
RPR.
one basket. Great point,
Yeah.
Ron. So yeah, that's why I'll look at Zestimate, I'll look at RPR, I'll look at Flex MLS. I'll even look at the CRS property reports to compare the bedrooms and square footage. And if there's something off, I'll ask the seller, hey, here's another source. Have you had a bank appraisal recently, let's say in the last 5 years? Why is that important? Because not only, I'm not going to really care too much about the price. I'm looking to verify facts like square footage and bedrooms, because that does play a major part in pricing. We're pricing mostly on dollar per square foot. So if RPR and the MLS is saying 1,408 square feet, but there's an addition off the back of the house, the floor plan is bigger than something else that's sold. And the seller says, well, I had it appraised 2 years ago and the square footage on the appraisal is 1,600 square foot. Guess what I'm using? I'm using 1,600 square feet because that's certified. I have an appraisal I could tie it back to, right? And that's going to impact the value and the pricing. Definitely look for multiple options or multiple sources of price. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Again, I told you guys, I know we went a little bit over, but the listing stuff is very critical, especially in this market with regards to doing the 14 steps, doing your presentation, and also pricing it correctly. Okay. And in that order, you want to less is more on the phone. You want to get face to face, get an appointment, get your foot in the door. Don't talk commission, don't talk price. You want to demonstrate your value, talk about marketing, try to handle as many objections as you can before you get into pricing. And then you want to handle the pricing conversation with them understanding what market value is. And hopefully by the time this is all set and done, you'll have a listing that's ready to go and priced right, and you can get it sold and out the door. Any questions in closing? I'm just going to circle back to what I said early on Thursday. It's like a combination lock. You have to do it in a certain order to get the lock to open. Now you can understand. If you talk about pricing first, they're not going to hear anything else that you have to say about your listing appointment because you did it out of order, right? If you start having this conversation on the phone with the seller and everything, you're never even going to have to worry about going to the house because they're not going to let you in. So do it in a set order that we just went through and practice. Practice makes perfect. The more you practice this, thank you, Brenda and Christine and Carol and all the other agents that are on there. But they could tell you they've been doing this for years and it really hasn't changed. The formula hasn't changed. What they're saying is that what I'm saying here today is the same thing we said 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, reinforced because it works. But you have to do it with years of experience is what's going to build that confidence, and practice is going to build that confidence. And go in there and remember that just because you're in front of that seller today doesn't mean that there's not other sellers available. So if you're not feeling it, or if you're just not aligned with that seller, that's okay. Right? You don't have to say yes to every listing either. Any questions in closing? We're good. So Thursday, we're going to talk about a little bit more about leading real estate companies in the world, our global affiliations, the software, the website. Everyone's going to go through a little bit. And then Anne-Marie can come back and circle. I know she's going to circle and recap some of the transaction processing and also probably do another CMA as well. And we're going to wrap up essentials for this round. And then stay tuned, probably at the full agency meeting. We're going to be talking about some other stuff that we have coming up in the future months. But I think this is good stuff. Looking forward to seeing you guys submitting and turning in and pending lots of listings right now. But look at Ryan, I mean, kudos to you. You've been in the business how many weeks, right? Not even months, weeks. You already posted an ad, put it out on social media. You're already getting the CMA and you're already getting your foot in the door. So you're on your way. It all works if you work it. You just have to work it.